Welcome to the Incredible Grains channel, where we feature the miracle of plant-based medicines and foods. The opinions shared do not always reflect those of this channel, but are for the purpose of research and discussion.
Important stuff. I'm very excited. We're going to be talking about cruciferous vegetables as a group. In other words, we're going to be talking about broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, cabbage, collard greens, bok choy, pak choy, watercress, landcress, radish, daikon, wasabi. Yes, wasabi. It's a cruciferous vegetable. Who knew? We're also going to be talking about broccoli sprouts. So much about broccoli sprouts. And more importantly, sulforaphane. We're going to talk about how sulforaphane is the most potent, naturally occurring dietary activator of the genetic pathway NRF2, which regulates over 200 different genes. Many genes which are antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and genes that are involved in inactivating potentially harmful compounds that we may be exposed to on a daily basis. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition that showed if we took the population and divided them up by their vegetable consumption, those in the top 20% of the population eating the most vegetables had a 16% reduction in what is known as all-cause mortality. What this means is that for that period of time studied, they were 16% less likely to die from all non-accidental deaths compared to others in their age group, regardless of many other health factors like exercise. Hey, that's pretty good, right? But if instead of just looking at vegetable consumption, we look at the top 20% of cruciferous vegetable consumers, the effect on all-cause mortality is even more substantial. The top 20% of consumers of cruciferous vegetables reduce their all-cause mortality by 22%. Smokers who consumed at least 4.5 servings of raw cruciferous vegetables a month had a 55% reduction in lung cancer risk compared with those who consume less than 2.5 servings per month. Multiple studies have shown that women who have consumed cruciferous vegetables at least once a week had between a 17% or as much as a 50% decrease in breast cancer risk for those consuming it every day. The variation between these studies likely has to do with the preparation of the cruciferous vegetables and whether they were fresh or frozen, all of which actually affect the bioavailability of the active compounds, which we'll talk about in a minute. But what if you already had cancer? People with bladder cancer that had just 4 servings of raw broccoli per month had a 57% reduction in bladder cancer mortality and a 43% reduction in all-cause mortality compared to those that just had 1 serving per month. Something is obviously going on here. These are some pretty powerful associations. But before we can begin to establish causality, we must establish a plausible mechanism. Our most likely candidate, isothiocyanates. Isothiocyanates are formed from compounds known as glucosinolates by an enzyme called myrosinase, which is activated when the cruciferous plant tissue is crushed or chopped or chewed, but is inactivated under conditions of prolonged heat, such as sustained boiling. One particular isothiocyanate, sulforaphane, stands out from all the rest because of its potency and because of the sheer volume of scientific scrutiny it's been subjected to. Remember a minute ago when I said isothiocyanates are formed from glucosinolates? Well, sulforaphane is no exception. The glucosinolate that sulforaphane is formed from is known as glucoraphanin, or it's more often simply referred to as sulforaphane glucosinolate. The single best source of glucoraphanin and thus sulforaphane are likely broccoli sprouts, which contain up to 100 times more glucoraphanin than their mature counterpart, broccoli, and prevent the formation of DNA adducts, which is a type of DNA damage that has been shown to lead to cancer, which occurs after exposure to particular types of carcinogens. Tobacco smoke is loaded with carcinogens that form DNA adducts, which is why it's really nasty stuff that increases the risk of several different types of cancer, including lung and bladder cancer. It also may explain why just a few extra servings of cruciferous vegetables a month may lower the risk of lung cancer by 55%, like we just discussed a while ago. But what about the study on bladder cancer? Here too, we've got pretty good cause to believe that it's the isothiocyanates. In a study where rats were given a chemical compound that causes bladder cancer, almost 96% of those animals went on to develop large tumors. By comparison, only 38% of the animals that were given a very high dose of isothiocyanates at the same time went on to develop cancer, and those that did develop cancer, the tumors were much smaller in size. Many other animal studies have also mechanistically shown that isothiocyanates reduce cancer incidence when challenged with a tumor initiator. And what about this? Just so you know, benzene is a carcinogen that's been shown to cause cancer in humans and in animals, particularly leukemia. The major source of benzene is from automobile exhaust and air pollution, but also from cigarette smoke, even secondhand. The major source of benzene for non-smokers is from air pollution, whereas smokers are mostly exposed to benzene from cigarette smoke. In fact, in the US, cigarette smokers are exposed to around 10 times more benzene than non-smokers, or around 2 milligrams a day compared to only 200 micrograms a day in non-smokers. This starts to make a pretty interesting case for smokers, right? So here's what we've got so far. Smokers that eat a lot of cruciferous vegetables have a decreased risk of lung cancer. Smoking loads us up with a carcinogen called benzene, and drinking a supercharged broccoli sprout drink increases our excretion of benzene. But even if you're not a smoker, which I really hope you're not, there are plenty of other sources that we can be exposed to benzene from. Air pollution is another place we get it. That's because air pollution in the United States primarily comes from automobile exhaust, which is a source of benzene. High-dose benzene exposure from air pollution has been shown to increase oxidative DNA damage in a dose-dependent manner in people, while even low-dose exposure to benzene from air exposure and gasoline exposure has been shown to epigenetically change genes that are involved in suppressing leukemia. If we wish to concern ourselves with air pollution, however, we should look to a study published in 2008 on the use of a broccoli sprout homogenate. This study found that broccoli sprouts, when administered as a homogenate, had a direct effect on increasing the expression of phase 2 detoxification enzymes in the upper airway. In other words, right where it counts. The doses they gave to individuals ranged from 25 grams of broccoli sprout homogenate all the way up to 200 grams, with a clear dose-response relationship, where the largest dose had the most potent effect, strongly increasing the production of various glutathione-related enzymes such as glutathione S-transferases, heme oxygenase 1, and NQO1, which is an enzyme we talked about earlier when we discussed breast cancer. Benzene isn't the only airborne carcinogen the anti-benzene broccoli sprout drink worked some magic on. Over the 12-week trial, excretion of the carcinogen acrolein rapidly increased.
Moringan is similar and likely more active than the sulforaphane found in broccoli. Let me say that again because it's huge. Moringan is more active than the sulforaphane found in broccoli. Just like the isothiocyanate in broccoli, the entire reaction is dependent on one enzyme called myrosinase. Both myrosinase and glucomoringan are stored in the moringa plant, but they're stored in separate compartments. The enzymatic reaction occurs when these little compartments or cell walls are broken down, allowing the two compounds to mix and react with each other.